All right, so week 7. Uh, I'm going to start with talking about the property report. So just to give you a background on what that is, it's a, it's a, it could be 20 pages, it could be 10 pages, how many as you want it. In my case, it's usually about 20 to 26 pages. And what it is this is something you give to your private money lender. And this is a very important part of what I do. And so I actually gone through a lot of trouble to do this for you, and I'll explain how, because it does require explanation. And so what is a property report? It is a PDF document that shows your due diligence for a investment property, right? So you're doing it for dual purposes. You're in most cases, well, in all cases, if you're using a private money lender, you're having somebody fund the property, but it is for your portfolio. So think about it. If you're buying a property for yourself, you want to know, you want to do your due diligence to make sure that you're buying a good property, right? It's going to produce results. It's going to have the cash flow that is needed to do the debt servicing and all that. So it's usually it's in my case, I think it has two purposes, dual purpose, right? One is you're doing your own due diligence. You want to just make sure it's a good property, right? So while you're doing that, you're also preparing that document that you will then present to your investor, right? So, um, like I said, the document could be only few pages. If you think you can do everything in 10 pages, well, that's fine. But it could be 20 plus pages. Generally, a property report should have property specs. So that's like, giving how many bedrooms, bath, what is the square footage, what is the land size, tax records, if you can just find some tax record information to put up there, lots of photos. Ideally, you would, in this case, obviously, you can't do that, but you should have photos and you should have a walkthrough video as well. So I'll talk about the video. Obviously, you can't put the video in a PDF, but you should have photos. Then you should have sold comps, rental comps, and finally, you should at least do 1 page of investment specific underwriting. And I'll exactly show you what all of these are. And I'm telling you, don't think this is an overkill. Like I said many, many times before, the more work you do upfront, the less questions you get from your private money lender. So the purpose of the report is, like I said, you create your own due diligence in assessing a property. You're also trying to assess the true value of the property uh, as is value, right? You assess the suitability of this property for your model, slow flip model, right? Because not all properties are suitable for the slow flip model. Maybe they're suitable for something else. I know some of you also wholesale and you do other things, but still, the idea is you want to find out that it is suitable for the slow flip model. And then you present this report to your PML. You justify the valuation and investment viability of the property to your PML. So a couple of things here. So let's say you're borrowing 30,000, right? If you notice, a lot of inexperienced people in school in our community talk about, and they're not really sure what it means. They're borrowing $30,000 and the property is maybe worth $30,000. They're not really sure. Well, think about it. If you're a private money lender and somebody's asking you to lend them money, and the first question they ask, they want to, of course, they want to have their security and all that, but they'll ask you a question about the valuation, right? Well, what do you think the property is worth? And if you say, well, I'm not sure if it's worth 30, maybe it's in 25. Well, right there, you have a problem, right? Think about it. You're asking a private money lender to lend you 30 grand and you're hesitant verifying that the property is even worth 30,000. So you have a big problem. So that is what is solved through this report, right? So you want to justify the valuation that you're coming up with sold comps and all that, and then investment viability in terms of what they're investing in, which is a slow flip model, right? So you have to justify both things or present your case, right? So that's what you're trying to do. So these are the different sections. So I'm going to go through different sections and why I do it this way. So you, by the way, all of you will have template. Towards the end, I will give you the QR code that'll give you the Canva template. So original template, which means you can go in and change the address of the property, change the pictures and everything. All right. So the first page, I call it the cover page. You have the address on top and then you put a picture. You simply drop a picture in there. You click on it, delete the existing picture, put the best picture front of the house in there. All right. This is the second page. I used to have this page towards the end of the report, but then I realized that, you know what, this is the most important part of the report. Why don't I put it right up front? So this is the second page. And what it is, this is what I was talking about, the one page underwriting that you should do. So consider this as your one page underwriting. After all the things that you have in your report, sold comps, property specs, rental comps, after everything, what is your summary, right? That's what this is. So what I do is, even though it's on the second page, I actually work on it last. So I leave it here. I do the rest. I do the sold comps. I do the rental comps, do all of those things. And then I come back based on what the numbers were. Then I actually finalize it. So what is a property summary report? This is the most important part of the entire report. While it is immediately after the cover report, like I said, I prepare this part at the end. Property summary has following sections. Property condition, you're going to talk a bit about what the condition is. You're going to talk about after repair value estimations. You're going to talk about market rents, cash on cash estimation. Some investors like that. They want to know that. Financing test and your conclusion. When I say financing test, I'm really talking about a very brief cash flow analysis, very simplified version. All right. So that's page 2. Page 3 to it could be page 10, pictures. And you could readjust the pictures however you want. The more pictures, the better. Like, let's say you had 10 pictures from the for exterior. Great. Put them out there. It is the more your investor looks at them, the better they are, satisfied on, because maybe in one picture you have an angle and you can see the roof. In another side you can see the siding, so it's definitely better. Don't think that, oh, one picture from the outside should be enough. It may be enough for you, but maybe not for your investor, right? So this is where you'll post all the available pictures. The more pictures, the better. Pay attention. Do not randomly post pictures. I said past pictures, it meant post. And what that means is, think about it. Would the first page of the picture show the water heater? I mean, yeah, but think about it. Logically, you want to present it as if you're doing a walkthrough. See what I'm saying? So you start from the outside and do it logically. What it shows to your investor that you actually spent time preparing this, right? So start from the exterior, curate it in a way that you're doing the exterior pictures, then you're going the inside, then you're doing the walkthrough from the living room to the bedrooms to the kitchen and bathroom and so on, right? You can resize that's the good thing about Canva is you can put like 6 pictures on one page, or you can put one picture on one page. You can resize them however you want. So Canva really allows you to adjust the pictures using the same space, right? So I really, really like that. Then I have public facts and history. I basically grab this from PropWire. You can use some other sources if you like, but I like it the way it gives me in terms of format. I simply copy and paste. So I take screenshots from a PropWire report, and then I just put it in there. And usually the section talks about public facts, zoning, building details, and land information, right? And if all information does not fit on one page, you can spread it out on 2 different pages. What you're really trying to do is provide information. Don't worry too much about the formatting and all that, as long as the information is there. I also have a snapshot of the property tax information. If you can put an estimation of how much the property taxes are, great. Usually I find the tax information does not actually tell you what the taxes are. For that, if you literally, I found in some counties, if you literally put property tax for and you put a full address, it will actually bring you right on the county tax record page. I'm not kidding, right on the page where it shows you what the annual taxes are. Simply take a screenshot and you can put it there as well. I don't do it, but you can do it as well. So that way in one page, you have both information. And then I have market snapshot. So PropWire does a great job giving you, an idea of, in this specific zip code, what is the median price of a home, what is the median square footage. So I really take a screenshot of the local market data and then of the home trends. Um, That's all you really need. So again, you're kind of giving a little idea to your investor what this market looks like. Now we're talking about sold comps. Now this part I know is I'm showing you like this. This is not, you're not going to understand it if you've never done it this way. So I actually did a full 25-minute video on how I go about doing it. So in addition to this recording, when you will go and later find a recording of this, there will be another video recording. I'm trying to figure out, I think in one folder in school, I think you can only put one video. So we'll figure out a way how to embed two videos so that you can have that video. In that video, I actually show you how I do it. Physically, how I run the report and then transfer the data into the property report so you can see the whole process. It's a 25-minute video. All right, so basically in that video you'll see it, but what we are really doing is I run sold comps on PropWire. You can use other places if you can find it, and I may tweak it a little bit based on how the results I'm getting. So for example, this particular house is um, a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. So that's another problem you'll have. Let's say this, in this case, this home is really old. It was built in 1910. It was a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. At some point, somebody added another room or converted something to another room. So it on the market, it's showing as a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and the square footage is also a little bit different. So you might have these slight differences going on. Your job is to verify the information and based on that, run the comps. So those are the tweaks you need to do before you run the comps, right? That's what I mean when I say tweak the results. So because when you run the comps, it's going based on 2-bedroom, 1 bath, but you know your property is actually 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and has more square footage. So now when the results come, you can actually click on the appropriate comp. And then what I do in PropWire itself, if you choose 10 properties, so when you run the report, it shows you like dozens and dozens of results, right? You choose the best comps. If you choose more than 10, you cannot export it. So that's something you got to learn. So you have to choose 10 or less. If you choose 10 or less, there will be a small button right next to it, export button, and it'll export as a PDF. That's what I do. I export the result of the sold comps as a PDF and then embed them into the Canva report. And is that other video that I'm talking about will actually walk you through the process. I do the same thing with the rental comps, but instead of PropWire, obviously PropWire doesn't give you that. I use Zillow. You can use there's some paid versions also, but Zillow is free and it's pretty good. I mean, it's not 100% accurate. If you really want accuracy, then you may need to use 2 or 3 different sources to come up with an idea of what the average is. In this case, also, you're looking for a rough idea. Based on your judgment, you'll have to figure out what is a realistic rent that you can get. All right. So when you run a rental comp report on Zillow, you can export it as a PDF. So this is actually a PDF export. Again, you bring it in Canva and then you embed onto the pages. Like I said, I did a video showing you exactly that step by step. That's going to be the other video that you can watch. All right. So, yep, that would be that. Now we go back to the second page. So this is important. So you got to pay attention to this. This is very important because your investor will read this. So you need to pay attention to it. Do not be careless and leave information unedited. For example, if you're using a template and you have information from previous report, make sure that is not in it. For example, your subject property is 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and you're using an old template and it had 4 bath and it's mentioned here. Well, guess what? Your investor will figure out that you used a template and your information is not accurate. Well, then he'll question the rest of your report, and you don't want that. So here's what we did. You based on your sold comps, you can now estimate the as is value and the ARV. That's what I do in this case. How do I do that? Remember, it's not, in my opinion, it's not a perfect science. If you get 4 or 5 appraisers to appraise a home, you will probably get 4 or 5 different values, right? So it's kind of like that. So, but how I do it, it's in that other video. You'll see how I justify these numbers. So once I run the report, based on the report, I look at the square footage, and based on that, I figure out what the as value is. Then I look at a couple of properties who are on the high end. Again, I estimate that they are probably after repair condition properties, and I use that square footage to figure out the ARV for the subject property. Don't worry about it. Like I said, there's a whole video on the other this aspect. So based on your rental comps, I do the same thing, and I estimate how much you can rent this property for. Again, remember the Zillow report is an estimate. Right? It's called a Zestimate, right? Literally, it gives you a range. But well, you do have to figure out a number. So how do you come up with a number? In that video I show you exactly that. But what you're really doing is you're looking at what's in the market, um, because what Zillow is doing is using everything. Is using one bedroom, one bath. It's using 2 bedroom, one bath. It's using 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, whatever is in the market. If your property is 3 bedroom, one bath, and most of the properties that Zillow used to come up with the value are 2 bedroom, well, guess what? You can estimate that you are going to be a little bit on the higher end in the sense that the existing inventory gets about $700 because they're smaller. So if yours is a 3 bedroom, you can estimate it's definitely higher than what this estimate mid-range is. Do you see what I'm saying? You have to make some judgment here because you can't just go by that. Now, yes, if the whole entire neighborhood represents your subject property, if every property in the estimate is 3 bedroom, one bath, almost exactly like your square footage, yeah, you can use what Zestimate is giving you. But in most markets, it's not going to be like that, right? In most markets, it's going to be a mixed inventory. So based on this, also, we are going to do a basic cash flow analysis. A cash flow analysis is simply what your rent, what your projecting the rent is going to be, what your taxes are, convert that into monthly, what your insurance that is, convert that into monthly, your debt servicing, it's 30 grand, so it's 667.33. So you got the rent, deduct all of these, leftover is your cash flow. So what you like to show your private money lender that even if I pay you and pay my taxes and insurance, I have some leftover. That's what you're showing them. All right. And then your conclusion based on all of these things is whether this is a great deal as a slow flip, if that's what your model is or not. Right. Obviously, if it's not, then you won't go through this trouble. But that's the whole idea of this, is that you want to show that this is a great investment property based on the information you provided. Now think about it. You went through all this trouble, all this due diligence. When this report goes to your private money lender, maybe he or she will do their own due diligence. But they will look at this. They will say that, wow, you've gone through a lot of trouble to come up with this report, which means you know what you're doing and you are doing the analysis properly, which every private money lender would want you to do, right? Because the last thing you want the private money lender to think is, oh, because it's my money, he or she is not taking this seriously. You want to show that, no, you're taking this as seriously because this is going in your portfolio. This property will be in your portfolio. So you want a good property that will produce the kind of income that you're projecting. Does that make sense? And so this is a very important report. That's why I said it's a very important part of my system. And that's why, like I said, I made an additional video for you to go through this. Okay. So hopefully that's going to be helpful. So this is the QR code. Again, there'll be a recording of this. You can do this later. You simply scan it and it'll bring you to Canva. On Canva, you can copy that code. You can copy the template. So you will have a copy of the template. Then you can just make your own reports. Okay.